Hey, so I was getting pretty close to finishing this here video, and what convenient timing. How about that expensive update that just dropped, huh? Yeah, I'll be frank and say I'm very unhappy with a lot of the big quote-unquote balance changes that we got. At least the new fan art gallery offers us distraction.
Worf, are you alright?
Data's painting is making me dizzy.
Anyway, I might just turn my thoughts into a video once I've had more time to experience and process it all. I mean, maybe. No guarantees. In the meantime, here's some lighthearted brain filler if you need to wash the sour taste out of your mouth. A common quality of life change players request for Sticky Bomb is to give it obvious visual and/or audio cues when it sticks to you. This is a really good idea, but Sticky Bomb technically already does make a unique noise when it sticks to something. However, as you've heard, or perhaps haven't heard, it's pretty quiet and indistinct in typical gameplay. I never noticed this sound myself until I discovered it in the game files and then went out of my way to listen for it. The base walking speed for players seems to be roughly 4.3 meters per second, give or take a bit. I estimated this by recording myself moving between two shooting range targets set 30 meters apart, timing how many seconds it took me to cover the distance, then dividing 30 by that number of seconds. Regardless of whether I was moving forward, backward, or sideways, the time was consistently at or a couple frames over 7 seconds. Keep in mind, this all assumes the shooting range distance markers are accurate, which I don't know for certain. This particular section of wall on Tabletop is non-solid to bullets, many projectiles, and explosions, and it doesn't block turrets' line of sight.
It's fun.
Can you stand opposite side of the landmine?
This is an interesting interaction. Wait, what was—
To be clear, it's not entirely non-solid. For purposes like player collision and dropped cards, it's still impassable.
Interesting.
Friends vs. Friends has a pretty generous coyote time, a grace period after walking off a ledge where you can still jump despite your feet no longer touching any ground. You can even tell when other players do a successful coyote time jump, because the mid-air jump particle effect will appear under their feet. Besides making platforming more forgiving, I have a hunch there's another reason the FEF devs chose to implement this. This game's movement physics are pretty bad at walking down slopes. If the incline is too steep, you won't walk down the slope so much as walk perfectly forward into the air, then fall due to gravity. Without the coyote time, this would probably make jumping while walking down slopes extremely finicky, since you're technically already airborne for most of the time, and would thus be unable to jump. The deep fryer is weird, possibly weirder than you thought. I covered this in more depth in my fun tier list video, but in short, this hose of fire is just a visual lie. In reality, the deep fryer seems to shoot a continuous barrage of short-lived, invisible projectiles that spawn fire if they touch certain things, mostly level geometry and players. Also of note, the deep fryer's invisible projectiles can physically interact with certain other projectiles. In theory, there are some very unique practical applications for this, like long-range turret deployment or launching your heart to an unexpected part of the map, but in all of my matches, I've never seen anyone else attempt anything like this. The two long walls on the top floor of Museum are deceptively easy to get on top of, since you can stand and jump on virtually all the mounted artworks. Probably nothing mind-blowing to a lot of movement FPS veterans, but in my own matches I rarely notice players take advantage of it as a flank or vantage point. Floor's lava will often destroy damageable objects in positions where a player would be perfectly safe.
I'm afraid of
This
it.
is most obvious on pool day, where the lava stops just below floor level. I don't know what causes
Can't see
this.
anything.
Maybe objects tend to have
Oh.
larger collision hulls than players? Or maybe players and non-player objects just use fundamentally different code to decide whether they're touching lava?
Yeah.
You can survive having your heart shot or otherwise damaged via painkillers. Saying that out loud, that interaction sounds really obvious, but I never see anyone else make use of it, so I doubt it's well known. Anyway, until the painkillers run out and you actually die, your heart remains intact and can be shot again and again with no consequences besides a lot of damage flinching. Okay.
You ready?
Yeah, go.
Fine.
Awesome.
There are a couple references in the game files to an unused/unfinished weapon called the Iron Arm, or maybe Iron Arms. They include a texture sheet for a model that seemingly doesn't exist, and a card bake sprite that is so obviously unfinished that it still has placeholder strings without localized text. While we're on the topic of unused and unfinished cards, there is a staggering number of them, probably in the dozens at least. I'm not going to mention any of them again for the rest of this video, but just thought y'all should be aware. This keychain of the default card back is the only keychain currently in game that doesn't have a white outline. I'm not implying that this is a mistake or that it should be changed. I think it looks better without the white outline, but it's interesting that this is so far the only one to break that rule. In no particular order, here are some of my favorite unused text assets I've found from digging around in the game files. There is a text file titled Tips. It has a tip. Projectiles mentions the existence of a special rocket projectile type that would be unaffected by gravity.
Oh, soldier.
Some characters' personality cards have extended descriptions specified, like what you see when you inspect a card in the deck builder. Some of these extended personality card descriptions even seem to reference variables to display exact numbers for things like Haru's speed increase and Lars's explosive damage reduction. Of course, there's no way to inspect personality cards, so these extended descriptions can't be read in-game. The game has a surprisingly sophisticated system for animating characters' eyes. The pupils can be moved and animated separately from the rest of the eyeball in order to, quote-unquote, look in different directions. You can see this in the character select animations, where characters will shift between gazing ahead and focusing on some other point in space. There's only one very large problem. Eye animations don't work properly on certain characters, nor on most non-default skins. On these bugged skins, the pupils are often differently sized and/or positioned, and they're locked in place, staring soullessly and foreverly in the same direction. Of note, Cluster Jr. doesn't seem to have any complicated eye animations at all on any skin, except for occasionally squinting. There are no playable rabbits in Friends vs. Friends, though there is at least one playable hare. Thus, the vernacular turn of phrase rabberism is a misnomer, and might be more accurately described as domestic harerism.